In the grand scheme of Siege, weapon attachments really are a trivial portion. When you think about how difficult it is to learn all the maps, setups, callouts, gadgets, and weapons, the small bonuses the attachments give you can really seem insignificant. But in reality, for some of these weapons, the right attachments can make the difference in bottom to top scoring. After rigorous days of testing in the shooting range and target practice, I'm 43, a veteran R6 player here to teach you what attachments you should run on every gun in Siege. For reference, timestamps for each weapon are below, so if you're looking for a specific suggestion, go right ahead. To preface, I understand that most of you are here to learn what are the best setups to improve your aim, but before we get into the attachments, here are some general tips that you might be surprised will improve your recoil. In your control settings, always make sure that your vertical sensitivity is a little higher than your horizontal. This will make it so vertical recoil is just a tiny bit easier to nail down. Also, never be afraid to run target drills before sessions. Programming exactly where head level is in your brain is excellent for your aim. Learning the recoil patterns and effective range of your weapons is paramount to Siege's gunplay. Recoil, range, and positioning are the three major rules of gunplay in Siege, and knowing how far away to play with an AR and how close to play with an SMG can be the difference in a won or lost gunfight. Getting into some general attachment rules of thumb, firstly, for the vast majority of weapons, the combination of flash hider and vertical grip is the safest and best option. So if you aren't looking to specialize in any way, just run those two on everything. As for the other two options every player has, sights and underbarrel, here are my thoughts. The one-time sights are almost always personal choice, but some are undoubtedly worse than others. Sights like the Reflex C are genuinely just worse choices than the Reflex A. My suggestions for non-magnified are as follows. Red Dot B is my personal favorite as its small housing and sight picture allow for more peripheral view. The reticle is a unique mix of a chevron like we see at the triangles on the reflexes and a dot like we see in most other sights. This sight is my number one pick, but other sights like the Red Dot C, Hollow B, Reflex A, and Reflex B are by far the best options for their own purposes. You'll notice I didn't mention the previous king, the Hollow A, as with a recent reticle nerf, the center dot is much larger, making it worse for pixel peaks. Hollow A now has the smallest sight picture in the game, as well as one of the bulkiest housings, with an average at best reticle. So there is room for other options. As for the magnified sights, all of them have their own cases, but I always equip one if one is available. I'd personally use the old 1.5 on attackers and defenders I know I'll be swinging corners a lot with, as the reduced sight housing size allows for less frequent tunnel vision. Operators like Ash, Wamai, IQ, and other 3 speeds work fantastic with this sight. For longer range weapons and playstyles, I suggest the magnified A or the old ACOG. The clean reticle and large sight picture is perfect for longer angles, when you don't need to clear those close quarters. Operators good with this sight are Doc, Roni, Brava, and Dokebi, and on any DMRs. As for the telescopic sights, just don't. Yeah, just don't. Onto the other option, we have the laser sight. Now currently I run the laser sight on every weapon in the game just because I find getting caught off guard and suffering that increased ADS time can be so painful. If your sight placement is good, the increased visibility of the laser sight will not be an issue for you, as it isn't for me. That's that, let's get right into the real meat of the video, our weapons. For the 417, I run angled and muzzle brake. Now you can definitely run a suppressor or vertical grip on this weapon, but I choose angled because of the low magazine size and muzzle for that reliable 2-shot potential. For the CAMRS, I run angled and muzzle. You're going to see a pattern here with the DMRs, angled for the magazine size, muzzle for the consistency. SR25, vertical and muzzle. Crazy take here, but this thing has the worst recoil for any DMR in the game, So the muzzle brake is not a compromise, but honestly, the vertical grip, you can swap it out for angled if you want to. MK14, angled and muzzle. Once again, shocking, but yeah, this thing is a beast with this setup. OTS-03, vertical suppressor. So for this one, I choose suppressor because it fits with Glaz's identity and playstyle, but this weapon cannot be run without some kind of recoil mitigation, trust me. So you either go vertical suppressor or angled muzzle brake. For me, the suppressor combo has a lot more practicality for this operator. AR-1550, angled muzzle. Making a very punctuated point here, you cannot use this weapon without the angled grip. The 10+1 magazine is the lowest mag size for any primary weapon in the game other than the BOSG, and that reload speed will save your life, especially on Tubarão. ARs. L85A2, vertical flash hider. While this weapon's recoil is easy to manage and it's viable to run other options, consistency is its strong suit, especially on the 2-3 health operators it's available on. The only option I'd swap is the muzzle for a suppressor, especially on Sledge to make his vertical plays a little stealthier. AR-33, vertical flash hider. This is one of those weapons you can run a suppressor on, but honestly I would double down on the consistency and reliability. G36C, vertical flash hider. That's my choice, but for this gun, you can definitely run suppressor or extended barrel, or horizontal or angled for grips. The compromise with this one is that you can't run it naked, meaning you can't run it with no recoil mitigation. I suggest keeping the vertical grip on. R4C, vertical flash hider. Now this one does have a decent rightward pull, but I feel it's not severe enough to warrant a compensator. Trust me, you will need the recoil mitigation on this one, and I suggest doubling down. 5.56XI, vertical compensator. You can for sure get away with any muzzle attachment on this one, but you'll notice that the sudden leftward kick about 5 bullets in will knock your aim off. Vertical for sure since you're playing either Thermite or OSA, and compensator for that unexpected kick. F2, flash hider 1x. Now you might rush to use the magnified sights on this one because they are available, but I actually encourage you not to. The recoil is way too high to argue for it, and the 1x gives you much more freedom with such a high rate of fire. It has no horizontal recoil, so run that flash for sure. AK-12, vertical compensator. This weapon is easily one of the strongest ARs in the game, and I feel you should double down on that, notably with the compensator for that harsh rightward recoil. AUG-A2, flash hider. You can run a 1x on this one, and its recoil is decently jumpy, but I feel it's manageable. No horizontal recoil, so run flash. 5.52 Commando, vertical flash hider. Ever since the damage and recoil nerf for this one, it definitely needs some help. There's no point in running the extended barrel anymore, and I feel both other grip options don't offer enough of a bonus. 416C, vertical muzzle brake. Yes, you heard me right, muzzle brake. Go into the firing range and check out how severe that first shot recoil is, and you'll understand. The first shot jump has lost me more gunfights than I can count, and you really need to get rid of it. C8 SFW, flash hider. You can for sure run suppressor or extended on this gun, but for buck I prefer the consistency. But both barrel options have their unique uses for vertical play. MK17 CQB, extended barrel angled grip. This weapon has no recoil, and you need to do everything possible to bring it up to par on the damage/ammo category. Higher damage, higher reload speed, still garbage but better than running any unnecessary recoil stuff. Para 308, flash hider horizontal. You don't really need any recoil mitigation on this weapon, so you can run the suppressor, and you also don't really need the angled for reload speed. The extended barrel might be a tantalizing option with that crispy 52 damage, but let me remind you that 52 damage will only 2-shot body 5 defenders, and the para does not need extra range. Take my word on this, don't run the extended. Type 89, Vertical Compensator. You might feel the need to equip the angled grip on this one due to its small magazine size, but the Type 89 has some crazy recoil, especially to the right, hence the compensator. Pick the angled grip at your own risk, but it's not my suggestion. C7E, Vertical Flash Hider. You definitely still need recoil mitigation on this gun, but with it, it's one of the best ARs in the game, no question. M762, Vertical Flash Hider. Great rifle, still has some jumpy recoil similar to Buck's C8. You can run a suppressor on this one, but I prefer the consistency personally. V308, Vertical Flash. You can run the suppressor to take defenders even more off guard, but there's really no reason to get too fancy here. Consistency for 50 rounds, that's what I'm taking. Spear 308, Vertical Flash. Ever since it was added to defense, this thing kicks. The vertical recoil is insane, so we want to reduce it as much as possible. M4, Vertical Suppressor. Now there's nothing wrong with running the flash hider on this gun, and with mostly vertical recoil, that is what I'd recommend. As long as it remains a Maverick only option, the suppressor is perfect for his playstyle, making sneaky holes and getting picks through them without anyone knowing. AK-74M, Compensator. This thing might have one of the most intense rightward recoils in the game, so reducing that is our primary concern. ARX-200, Angled Compensator. You need angled on this weapon. The reload speed is so long and the magazine size is only 20+1. The recoil isn't as bad as you might think. Give it a run and you'll see what I mean. F90, Vertical Flash. You can run the compensator on this one if you find the right pull to be too much, but honestly it's not bad enough to warrant it. Commando 9, Angled Extended. Yes, this is technically an AR in the game files despite being chambered in 9mm. It's got basically no recoil, so you can totally run it with a suppressor or horizontal too. Surprisingly, if you want to run recoil reduction, go for the muzzle brake. The first shot recoil is way too high and you will lose gunfights because of it. SC3000K, Vertical Flash. No use for the extended barrel anymore since the nerf. 50 damage, only 2 shots, 3 speeds, which there are only 5 of on defense. So for the most part, you'll be 3-shotting anyone anyway. POF9, Vertical Extended. This one really needs the damage increase and still requires some help with that recoil. LMGs, 6P41, Vertical Flash. LMG buff actually made this one a viable option, and you definitely want the reliability. G8A1, Vertical Compensator. It's got more rightward kick than you might think, so the compensator is definitely the play. M249, Vertical Compensator. The vertical recoil is practically non-existent, while the rightward pull is bad enough to put on the comp. Again, no reason to run anything other than the vertical. T95, Vertical Flash Hider. For the record, this is one of the only attacker weapons I'd advise using 1x on, as rushing with Ying is very strong and the magnified sights can make you tunnel visioned. You can also use the suppressor as the recoil isn't that bad either, and mostly vertical. However, do not run the angled grip as this weapon has the fastest reload for any LMG with an 80 round mag. Angled is just overkill. But you can definitely run horizontal for the same reason I suggested the 1x. LMG-E, Vertical Compensator. Similarly to most LMGs, the right pull is insane. I would never recommend this weapon, but if you use it, you probably already use this combo. ALDA, Vertical Flash. This thing practically has no horizontal recoil, and there's no use to run the horizontal grip on Maestro. M249 SAW, Vertical Compensator. This is the other high capacity LMG in the game that has a quick reload. The LMG recoil buff was very kind to this gun, and its major left leaning recoil was reduced by quite a bit, Compensator to manage what remains. DP27. Yeah. SMGs. FMG9. Flash Hider. Got a pretty hefty nerf sometime recently, but its horizontal recoil is still fine. Better to run the flash than anything, even on knock. MP5K. Suppressor / extended. You can for sure run the flash hider on this one if you find the recoil too much, but honestly I feel it doesn't need the recoil control. Extended will allow for 4-shot bodies on all attackers. UMP45. Vertical extended. Without the extended, this thing 4-shot bodies 3 armors, so you definitely want it. Vertical because its rate of fire is so slow, so you really need to be able to hit those shots. MP5. Vertical extended. If you need the recoil reduced, flash is the play, but this thing is a monster with the extended and an ACOG. You can't run it naked though, as the recoil will get in the way of your aim. P90. Suppressor / extended. The extended barrel doesn't shorten its TTK, but the extra range might come in handy. You really don't need the recoil mitigation for this one. 9x19 VSN. Vertical extended. Extended will get you 3 shots on all 2 armors, which are extremely common. If you need the recoil mitigation, go with the compensator. MP7. Extended irons. This one's really a toss-up. On the one hand, the suppressor is good for its reasons, but the extended allows for you to kill 3 speeds in just 3 bullets instead of 4. This could really come in handy, but the MP7 has a really high rate of fire to compensate for its low damage. I run the extended on Bandit and suppressor on Fenrir, and if you need the recoil control, go Flash Hider. C1. Vertical extended. For the same reason the UMP got this combo, you really need to hit your shots. Even better than the UMP, however, the C1 has a 35 round capacity, meaning the angled is even more unnecessary. MPX. Horizontal extended. For the record, anytime you can use an extended on an SMG is value, since they typically have less damage and range than ARs. The MPX is a sniper, and you don't really need the recoil mitigation or reload speed. If you do have trouble, however, vertical flash is the play. M12. Extended. If you're going to use this SMG, it has no recoil and needs more damage and range. MP5 SD. Vertical. More experienced players can run the other 2 options on this gun, but losing the 1.5 made Echo much more unreliable, and the vertical just makes him a little more consistent when swinging. Vector. Vertical flash hider. I know many people use extended on this one, but it only changes the TTK for 3 armors. I prefer consistency. Better players will use the angled grip over the vertical, but I feel mostly it's a niche pick. PDW9. Vertical extended. With how many bullets it has and how fast they fire, just spraying anyone down regardless of headshots will do the job. No other suggestions for this one. T5. Vertical suppressor. I used to run extended on this, but honestly I believe it to be a little redundant. It won't change your TTK unless you're at 20 meters, but you also don't need the recoil mitigation. If you don't want the suppressor, go Flash Hider. Skorpion EVO. Angled muzzle brake. No, I'm kidding. Vertical compensator. The name of the game for this one is recoil mitigation, so use everything we've got. K1A. Horizontal extended. Being a dedicated roamer, Vigil needs to get around and do damage. You don't really need the recoil help for this one, and the 3-shot body might save your ass. For recoil, run vertical flash hider. Mx4 Storm. Vertical compensator. With such low damage, this one thrives on headshots, and I usually play into that. Compensator makes such a massive difference for the latter half of this gun's recoil pattern, and it's just too good not to use. AUG A3. Vertical extended. This thing has no recoil, but there's really no reason to run the horizontal or angled on Cade. If you're using this, you really need to hit your shots due to its low rate of fire, so vertical is my choice. P10 Roni. Angled flash. Angled especially because it has such a small magazine size, and flash since you practically have to hit your heads with this one all the time. The body shot damage is so low that even with the extended, there's practically no point in running it, because if you're aiming for the body, you're just going to be dead. Uzi. Angled extended. With only 22 rounds in the mag, you really need the angled. The low rate of fire means it has controllable recoil, so double down on your kill potential. Secondary SMGs. SMG-11. Vertical muzzle brake. Yep, you heard me right. Now, I used to run extended on this, but I noticed it's not really necessary at longer ranges, as this thing melts to the body with its fire rate. The compensator is a great option for close engagements, but on smoke and mute, you'll have the shotgun out for those. The muzzle brake is great for what the SMG needs to be controlled, that being tap firing in small bursts. Try it out, test your trigger discipline, and you won't be disappointed. Bearing 9. Compensator. This thing is a close-range body shot melter, and it's best to kit it out as such. SMG-12. Vertical. Real shocker of an answer, I know. Surprisingly, you don't need increased reload or movement speed if you can hit at least one of your 33 bullets in a giant spray. C75. Just the laser on this one. The reason I don't run the suppressor is because it makes the awful iron sights just that much worse, and you really don't need a suppressor on a secondary. If you're swapping to it, the enemy probably already knows where you are. SMG-9. Compensator. On Cali and Clash, this thing is gonna be your primary from time to time, and with 20 rounds, you really want that consistency. The latter half of the spray is insanely unpredictable without the compensator, so there really is no question. Shotguns. The vast majority of the shotguns in the game only have two options, apart from a few. For all primary shotguns with just those two, run laser sight and whatever sight option you fancy. All of these shotguns are as follows. The M950A1, the M1014, the M870, the Super 90, the Spaz 12, the Spaz 15, the ETA 12L, the 612 and its integrally suppressed sister, the 612 SD. For secondary shotguns, you can now run the laser sight as it no longer reduces your hip fire spread, which used to make the destruction with them a lot harder. These are the Bailiff, the ETA 12S, and the Super Shorty. The only mention I should make is that I use Reflex B for all the shotguns as it gives me the greatest field of view. For the SG-CQB, I run horizontal grip, exactly for the reason you think. It's insane on Grim, I encourage you to try it sometime. For the SAS-G12, vertical suppressor, anything in attempt to control that god-awful recoil. For the Supernova, suppressor, there's really no reason not to run it. FO12, vertical extended. Similar to the sausage, the extended barrel is the only thing keeping this anywhere near okay. BOSG, angled ACOG. I am very passionate about this one. The BOSG is actually an insane option with the angled grip. Extremely important since it only has 2 shells. Don't bother with the vertical as the recoil is insane regardless. ACS-12, vertical. You really have to hit your bodies with this one, so just double down on the recoil control. TCSG-12, vertical suppressor. Let's not be fancy here, we really want to be hitting those follow-up shots on the TCSG. The angled is tempting due to that small magazine size, but it's not worth missing your shots for. Sidearms. For all sidearms, I run the muzzle brake and laser. As a secondary option, you really don't want to sacrifice anything when you run out of ammo on your primary. I use those 2 attachments exclusively on all of the following weapons: the P226, the M45 Musoc, the 5.7 USG, the P9, the LFP 586, the GSH-18, the PMM, the P12, the MK1, the D50, the PRB-92, the P229, the USP-40, the Q929, the RG-15, the Kratos, the 1911 TAC Ops, the P10C, the 44 Mag, the SPD 9mm, and the Vendetta. For Caveira's Louison, don't run the laser as it will give your position away. Whew, we're done. I hope any of these tips helped you out. If you want to share what you run on your guns, don't be afraid to leave that down below in the comments, and join up on the Discord if you have some custom attachments you've been thinking about and want to share them with the community. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as more commentary and custom operator videos are coming down the line shortly. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I will see you on the flip side.